So let's talk about rejection after rather intense interviews, because after a phone screening round, it's basically a filter. It's basically a gamble there. So it's not all that interesting to talk about rejection reasons there. But it is interesting and relevant to talk about rejection after an on-site interview, and why, in my opinion, you should never ask for rejection reason after an on-site interview. First things first, there are many companies, most companies actually do provide you with some feedback in case they rejected you, but there are some companies who do not here. And I would very much take the side of the companies that do not provide you with rejection feedback. And here's my thinking behind all this. There are primarily two reasons why they can reject you after an intense on-site interview for which you prepared, of course. The number one is that they didn't like your answers. And the number two, they found someone who's significantly better than yourself. If it's the second case, they found someone significantly better than yourself, in most cases, the vast majority of cases, they will call you back to interview for another role. I mean, for the same type of job, but in a different team, I don't know, in a different department, right? So if they found someone who's exceptional, right? But from experience here, in the vast majority of cases, you did not answer the question properly, right? So this is the number one reason why they rejected you. And if you didn't answer those questions properly, wouldn't it be normal for you to actually know this from your answers? So in my experience, talking to hundreds, if not thousands of people going through interviews, yes, they do realize hey, yes, my answers were not that great there, and there. And it happens that you find this, you know this on the spot while giving your answer. It happens that you know immediately after the job interview, or it happens that you figure this out after 2 weeks of that interview. Or it also happens in some cases that you talk to someone and then you figure it out that yes, is not right. And this is something you would want to keep pay close attention to. In other words, if you don't know why they rejected you, it means you're doing something terribly wrong in preparing for a job interview, because you cannot self-assess the quality of your performance. This is the most dangerous thing in this job interview. This is the number one time waster. You can spend 6 months training yourself on speaking your answers in the best possible way if you lack substance, right? So going back to the initial topic of this video, so why it's not a good idea to ask them for rejection feedback, these job interviews. And here's why. So I said that the vast majority of companies will give you some sort of feedback, right? If they will give you some sort of feedback, that will be following a standard protocol, so that feedback will likely be relevant feedback. If they don't give you feedback, and there are a couple of companies who do not. Amazon, for instance, has a policy not to give rejection feedback to anyone, although that's, it's a policy after all. But the point is that if they don't give you feedback and you ask them for feedback, you will likely ask someone who's not the decision maker about the feedback, why they rejected me. And if it's not decision maker, chances are they have no clue on why, or they will, even worse, they will speculate on why you got rejected. And the problem with this speculation is that not only, you will find they will give you some ambiguous reason, right? So, to give an example, they were looking for a hands-off engineer and you were a hands-on engineer. But the fundamental problem is they will bring you off track with your search for another job. They will bring you off track with what really matters, which I just said previously, that your answers were not good in the first place. And it's not to your advantage, this. You are asking them for a service after the interview, something that they are not obliged to do. So if they're not obliged to give you for rejection feedback, there will be some HR person who will be in a hurry to give you whatever reason just for them to continue with their job. So it's not to your advantage to ask them for rejection feedback, unless, of course, you know the hiring manager and you ask them, hey, John, why did you reject me? Right? So if you are that close to the hiring team and you know that they can provide you with valuable feedback, yes, but from experience, that's 1% of cases. So in most cases, you'd have no idea who that guy was, who's the decision maker, and you will never hear back from them. So then why ask some HR person for rejection reason? So again, what matters in a job interview is to self-assess. If you can self-assess your performance, like be it during the interview itself, immediately after, or 2 weeks after the interview. But it's important to self-assess your performance during these interviews, because this is when it's most useful for you to prepare you for eventually other job interviews. So again, in my opinion, it's not the best idea to ask for rejection reasons, and I'm talking from experience. And what you could also do, in order to further improve your chances to be able to self-assess your performance, is to take notes during the job interview. If you take notes of all the questions you got asked during the job interview, you will, after the interview, be able to have a more structured approach to go through all the experience. After all, and think of it, hey, could I have done something better here? Was this wrong, what I said? And you could also ask someone else, right, about these things, but you could go point by point, line by line, to see what you did right and what you did wrong. Also, rejection reasons. If a company has to pick between someone who's technically sound but not a cultural fit, and someone who's a perfect cultural fit but not technically sound, they will always pick the cultural fit, right? So whether you like it or not, this is how it goes. So you would also probably want to look there on whether they consider you a cultural misfit. So, take a look at their mission, value, core principles, and so on. But all in all, I know that it's a very dangerous business to get into asking the company for a rejection reason, when in fact it's you, the one who should be, unfortunately, doing the work of self-assessment and evaluating your performance after an interview. Just as of course, a learning, as an experience from which you can certainly grow from.